It's the way finely tuned athletes operate. You got to pace yourself and peak at the right time. We know later today the Jackson and McCoy podcast will drop. Matt McCoy joins me in studio. Stanley Jackson on the phone. It's just about pacing your day and making sure you peak at the right time, right, Stanley?
Absolutely. You got to make the right decisions. Unlike the decision I made this morning to take a new route. Cost me about 10 minutes. But, you got to keep a proper pace. And let's hope that, the big fella, Chase Young, has got the great pace going as he comes back to the field this Saturday.
Yeah, you got to keep an eye on that dude because he's probably going to come out with a little extra chip on his shoulder. He's got that record in front of him. He probably clinches that thing this week, doesn't he?
Oh, absolutely. And Coach Conley had the best line. The most disappointed people in America right now are the two Penn State tackles. They're probably getting some, psychological therapy right now, how to deal with this guy. He's got fresh legs. He knows that he's disappointed the country, he's disappointed his teammates, and I think he's raring to go.
Stan, you've been in locker rooms on big weeks, and there is something different. I mean, I know every game means the same in that you can't achieve the ultimate goal Ohio State wants if you lose a game earlier. But this one's different in that if you win it, you're in the Big Ten title game, and, you've set yourself up for possibly making the playoff and all that stuff. What does the feel like in a week like this? Is it can you take us into the locker room what these guys are feeling as they get ready for a game like this?
Well, listen, every other game up until this point, even though it may have been big games, has set you up for this moment. Now, this game gets you in. And so everybody understands that. It's important. What your hope is that they don't get too tight. If you go on a time machine and get back to the late 90s, every time we got to that week against that team from up north, we got too tight. What you want is guys to be focused. You want them to be prepared for the moment and spending the appropriate amount of time in the film room, because that's what it's about at this point. And at the end of the year, everybody's a little banged up. Are we smarter and more capable of executing our system than they are? And so you want guys to be lively. You want the energy to be up, and then you want to see guys flying around in practice. So that's what you want. If you don't get that, then they're a little too nervous or they're too cocky, and either one of those things will work.
Well, yeah. So you mentioned it right there, though, Stanley. Is our plan better than their plan? I mean, we got talent for talent. You feel like on the field, the Buckeyes are better than Penn State, better than really any team in the country. But when you get down to the planning and what the coaches have going, you're confident with Ryan Day and his team?
I am. I think Ryan Day has been the best play caller in the country all year long. I mean, every game you watch, there's something new, a new wrinkle, a new formation that catches a team off guard. You think about going back to the last home game, that motion that we ran with K.J. Hill. One time he caught a touchdown. The next time we threw it across the field. So his game plan has been sensational. The defense is playing at a high level. I'm really impressed with what they've done all year, and I think they'll be ready to go again.
Okay, you mentioned something about being too cocky.
Yeah.
I heard something this week that made me
a little nervous.
A little nervous.
All right.
So I'll share that with you guys coming up.
Excellent. We'll get a quick break for traffic and weather. Stanley walking in the studio right now, so we'll get him situated, and we'll continue. Again, Jackson McCoy podcast drops later. Getting you a little tease of it right now on News Radio 610 WTVN. He's situated in studio. Matt McCoy, sports director. Football analyst Stanley Jackson continuing. And you just, JK, maybe crossed the line for you,
Listen,
Matt, right?
Listen. If there is a favorite Buckeye on this team, and Stan will attest it, J.K. Dobbins. I love the kid. I've loved him for 3 years. So this is hard for me.
Okay.
I didn't like what I heard last week. So they finished the game against Rutgers, and he's taking questions following the game. And the voice you're going to hear first is Bill Rabinowitz of the Dispatch, asking him as they get ready here for these two monster games that are coming up. But just listen to this, and I'll react and let Stan react.
Okay.
How much are you looking forward to this stretch run where it is going to be a four-quarter game in all likelihood?
Why does it have to be a four-quarter game?
Well, that's a good question. But, Penn State, Michigan, and you got some tough games coming up. The likelihood is they're not going to be blowouts like this one.
Well, if I do play for 4 quarters, then I'll be ready for it.
If I do play for 4 quarters, I'll be ready for it.
Doesn't that you said cocky earlier? That was a little too cocky.
Get off my lawn. Get off my lawn, little kids. No, listen, that's not the cocky. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not it.
Don't you think that's cocky, though?
No.
Don't you think Penn State is going to hear that? This guy doesn't think. What does this guy think?
I think he has a sense of humor. I think he's human. I thought he was joking. I thought it was a little tongue-in-cheek there. I didn't think he was very serious.
Yeah.
And then he said, if I have to play. I think in the moment, he's a little frustrated the last 2 weeks that he's barely played, quite frankly. And then he looks at Jonathan Taylor running away with the title.
He has 0 carries in the second half the last 2 weeks.
So I think he was joking, quite frankly. That's not the cocky I'm talking about. That's not the cocky I'm talking about is when you're not showing up. You're not studying extra film. Like you think you could just show up and flip the switch. So in practice, you're walking around. Maybe you don't even practice this week. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how you prepare for the moment. Words, listen, you know how I feel about bulletin board material.
Yeah.
I have never seen a bulletin board tackle or throw a touchdown pass yet. And if you need me to say something negative about you so that you can prepare for this game, then you're not ready anyway. Yeah. And I think sometimes we overuse that. I never thought bulletin board material worked. In 1994, Penn State scheduled us for their homecoming, and Corey Stringer gave the greatest speech ever about the disrespect from Penn State. How are they going to schedule Ohio State for homecoming? Blah, blah, blah. That was the greatest bulletin board material in the history of the world. And guess what happened that game? You remember.
63-14. Penn State beat you.
My career first touchdown at Ohio State, though, so it's bittersweet.
So there are,
I'm guessing more bitter, though.
There are people this time of year that get nervous about games, and I'll raise my hand because there's so much on the line. They've absolutely had this phenomenal year, won every game by 24 points. But if they lose Saturday, they're probably not making the college football playoff.
Well, I think they might still have an outside shot. If it's a close loss, depending on what happens the rest of the way with other teams.
It certainly puts it in jeopardy.
It does.
At the very least.
And that's why losing late is not good. I mean, look at what the committee did with Minnesota. Like, why is Penn State ranked over Minnesota? Head to head.
Thank you.
I said I was talking about that with Joel this morning. Yeah.
And then if Indiana is that good to have Penn State jump Minnesota, why isn't Indiana ranked with 3 losses? Because there's some 4-loss teams ranked. But I'll save that for the podcast, I guess. I mean, it's just I don't understand that. But you're right. Losing late does matter. But let me ask you this question. What have you seen year to date out of Penn State that gives you pause or concern? Just because the last 3 years – Penn State, in the last 3 games, I think Penn State has scored more points but lost 2 games.
Correct.
So just because that happened the last couple of years, this is a different team. This is a different mentality. Penn State barely got out of that game with Indiana.
I'm with you.
That's the key right there. Different mentality, by the way. Mentality is everything this year with the Buckeyes.
The 19-point spread is so big. That just really surprised me that they favored it by 19.
It's not 55. Yeah. I mean,
still
the team has earned these spreads.
One of our great listeners, Melissa, I posted the interview we did with Bill Conley on Twitter, and she said, I'm going to shutdown mode, Matt. I'm a nervous wreck about this game, and I'm just a fan. How the coaches and players and families handle this is beyond me.
Shutdown mode.
It's not like I don't think we're going to win, but the pressure makes me nervous. And then I said, don't worry, Stan will make you feel better.
Yes.
So what would you say to fans, people like Melissa that are nervous about this game?
First off, you embrace the pressure. You embrace the moment.
That's what you play for.
This is what you play for. There's only one way to get a diamond, right? That's to put pressure on Cole. So you want the pressure. Do we want every week to be the last 2 weeks? That was pitiful. Yes. I hated watching those football games. Yes. So no, you got to enjoy this, relish this moment. It's a big-time football atmosphere. This is why you come to Ohio State. This is why you're a fan of Ohio State. And here's the reality. There's not a team in the country that is as balanced as the Buckeyes right now. If we play our game, nobody can beat us.
Okay, we joked about J.K. Dobbins saying the 4-quarter thing.
Stanley was very serious.
I
have to tell you, I didn't really like it. Is this a 4-quarter game?
No. Well,
is it a 3-quarter game?
Yes, it will be a 3-quarter game, right?
Okay.
Wisconsin,
it'll be like Wisconsin.
Wisconsin was 3-quarter.
Wisconsin-like.
Michigan State was 3-quarter, right? Wisconsin's a good football team.
Yeah.
Indiana's a good football team.
Yeah.
Guess what? That was 3-quarters. So no, J.K. will not play in the 4th quarter. I am so confident of that. Next week is a different story. That's Michigan.
There's some bulletin board material for you.
Yeah, put it up, Coach Franklin. Put it up.
J.K. will not play in the 4th quarter. Well, that's all you need. And I tell you what, you want more? We got more. Noon. Listen for it. Podcast on our page. More of that. Jackson McCoy, powered by Germain Toyota here on News Radio 610 WTVN.com.